What's cooking, Revere? I'm Victoria Fabbo, your local registered dietitian, here today to make a nice winter meal. Today we're going to start with beef stew. I want to make this beef stew gluten-free today, so I'm using some cornstarch with my cut up meat. I have already cut and prepared it, so I'm just going to go ahead and add it to the cornstarch. Give it a light toss. And if you do get the whole beef and you want to cut it up, you can cut it in about a knuckle size. If you can tell, that's about a knuckle. So go ahead and do that. So give it a nice gentle toss. But we want to dredge it a little bit to make sure we get the beef stew consistency that we'd like. Okay. So that's all right. A little mixed up. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wash my hands and I will be right back. To start our beef stew, I have on the stove at a low heat some olive oil. You can use butter if you'd like as well. And I'm gonna go ahead and saute my onions and garlic that I've already chopped up. Mix the oil, the garlic, and the onions together. And we're gonna let it sweat. So we're gonna keep it at a low to medium heat, and we're gonna put the cover on, and then we're just gonna let it hang out. In the meantime, let's cut up our vegetables. So first, we're just gonna demonstrate cutting a carrot. We're gonna peel it first. So go ahead and chop off the top. Make sure again that your fingers are like in a bear claw, and you're keeping your fingers nice and safe. And you can go ahead and cut smaller pieces if that's easier for you to chop. And then what I'd like to do is cut them a little bit at an angle to make them feel like they're a little fancy. And then I'm going to cut it in half. Push those to the side. Cut them in half, and let's cut it at an angle. Okay, let's move on to some celery. So go ahead and chop off the end. Put that to the side. Today we're gonna cut off the leaves and just add it to our compost. Again, go ahead and save the celery tops if you'd like, and you can use that in your vegetable stock, and you can also freeze any of your vegetable scraps. All right, just give them a nice little chop. Next, we're going to peel our potato. We can go ahead and cut it in half first. Cut it again in half. And then cut that once more. Again, cut in half. Cut once more. If you can tell the difference between the two potatoes, one's a little clearer and one still looks a little more yellow. So I cut them up last night. I put the potatoes that were cut up in a bowl of water and I let them sit for a bit to remove some of the starch. And then I rinsed that out and I did it again. And I let them stick with water. Again, let them sit for a bit, drain that water, and then a third time I soaked them in water and kept them in the fridge at night. And that was just to help remove some starchy flavors. You'll find that at high-end restaurants, they also like to let the potatoes sit in the water overnight to remove the starch, and you get a nice crispier flavor. I know in beef stew we don't necessarily want it crispy, but we might want to remove some of the starch for any therapeutic diet reasons if somebody's diabetic and want to try to remove some of the carbohydrates. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add our beef to the pot and let that brown up. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do a beef stew. You can first add butter to your pot and let that melt, then add flour to make a roux. Or You can also brown your beef and then make a roux. Add the roux in. But today I wanted to make sure the onions and garlics were cooked well. And then I want to add in our beef. And since we're trying to make it gluten-free, we're going to add a cornstarch slurry. And we'll show you what that is in a bit. Now I have the temperature at a low-medium heat. And I'm going to add the beef right in. Break up that beef in the pot. Don't let it stick too much. Turn up the heat if you'd like to get it nice and brown. And it's really important to make sure that you are washing your hands when touching any raw meat. The raw meat does have bacteria on it and you don't want it to spread. So make sure you always wash your hands for at least 20 seconds and then proceed to the next task. All right, now we hear that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the lid on and just let that brown a little bit. Okay, how can we get everyone for the holidays and for the winter to drink enough water? We really need to make sure we stay hydrated in the winter. Even though it is not hot outside, inside can be warm, right? With the heat on, the air is dry. So we need to make sure we stay hydrated. A fun way that you can stay hydrated is adding different fruits and vegetables to your water. So what I want to do today is I have some water going ahead and boiling. I also have 2 cups of cranberries. Cranberries have vitamin C and a lot of antioxidants that will help fight any bad bacteria or any colds that are coming your way with their winter season. You can also add, if you'd like, instead of just cranberry, you can add rosemary or sage or any other spices you might like or herbs that you might enjoy to drink. So you can have cranberry and rosemary water. We're just going to go ahead and let that boil. And then you can enjoy it hot or you can enjoy it cold. So we're going to go ahead and let that stay. We're going to go ahead and mix our beef stew. When you're making beef stew, you can add bay leaves, you can add rosemary, you can add salt, you can add garlic powder. Any way you enjoy beef stew, feel free to add it. Okay, so our beef stew is nice and sear. We're going to go ahead and add our vegetables next. Potatoes in, carrots in, celery in. So we have our protein, our beef in there, our red meat, which is really great for the winter when we need iron. If anybody's anemic, iron is helpful, so red meat could benefit you. Also, we have our potatoes, which is our starch for the day, our grain. Okay, we have celery and we have carrots. We need our fiber and we have some beta carotene and we also have some aqua from it, some water from it. And we're gonna let that just stir for a second. We're gonna mix it together. We're going to be adding our beef broth. So today I do not have beef broth prepared, so I have boiled water that I'm going to add as our stock. And then today I have beef bouillon, and so I'm going to add that to it instead. If you had bouillon cubes, you could definitely add that. We need some more water in our beef stew so that it is covering enough. We're going to keep our temperature on medium to high heat. So I'm going to add more water to fill and cover all the vegetables and beef. Add more water. Careful if it splashes. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our tomato paste. Give that a nice stir. Again, our temperature right now is on medium-high heat. We want it to get to a boil, and then we'll let it simmer from there. Go ahead and cover it. And then who doesn't love a one-pot meal? So everything is in there, and we only have one pot to clean at the end, which is great. Okay, so our beef stew has come to a boil, as you can see. Be mindful of the steam as it does come out. And we're gonna go ahead and lower that heat to a low-medium heat so it will be a nice simmer. You wanna keep the lid slightly off at an angle if you can, so some of the steam can still rise up and so that it can still slowly cook. It is a stew after all, so we do want it to slow and low and cook away. Okay. Now we're gonna work on our nice, delicious spa water. Again, you can keep it hot or you can keep it iced, whichever way you may enjoy. I'm gonna go ahead and strain the cranberries out. And you can definitely save this cranberry as well. If you wanna make cranberry sauce for some turkey dinner if you'd like, it's already cooked and ready to go. And then you can have some added for decoration. So we have some cranberry juice, right? So we have some antioxidants and vitamin C in. And again, you can enjoy it hot or cold. If you want it a little sweeter, you can add some honey and with a spoon just stir it in and make sure it dissolves completely if you want your cranberry juice a little sweeter. That's good. And it's so pretty. You can have that on your table when you have family over and they'll get excited to drink it. Okay, so we've been working on our beef stew. It's been stewing for over an hour and a half. We did add our spices, our rosemary and bay leaves with it. It's been stewing. I did take those out so they are not in the stew when you're trying to enjoy and eat it. I did also skim fat off of it because the oil was cooked with onions and garlic. There was fat on top. So you can still see that there's still some pockets of the fat that has risen to the top. So I just grab a spoon and I try to skim it off as best as I can. And you want to make sure you don't take as much liquid out. Okay, so put that aside. That looks good. Give it a nice stir. Okay. Now, I did talk about the slurry earlier. So I do have equal part cornstarch and water. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. Give it a nice little swirl with the whisk. And you can use a fork too if you don't have a whisk. Now we're gonna go ahead and slowly add it in. The color is gonna change. The cornstarch does make the product cloudy. Flour can also make the product cloudy. Give it a nice stir. It's on low to medium heat. I'm gonna increase it to just medium heat now. Then you're gonna wanna go ahead and let that cook for 10 minutes for the cornstarch to completely dissolve within the stew and make it more enjoyable and palatable on your tongue. Okay, so about 10 minutes have gone by with our cornstarch and our beef stew. Let's go ahead and dish it up. So I'm gonna turn off the heat. Give it a nice stir. Now you can see that the cornstarch, it really has thickened the stew up. That looked hearty. Thanks for having me, What's Cooking with Revere. I'm Victoria Fabbo. I hope you enjoy this winter-themed meal. Beef stew with hearty vegetables and our cranberry spa water. I hope around the kitchen table your family and friends really enjoy it. Until next time.